Time now for the markets with Leighton. 40% of the U.S. rice crop may not be planted due to flooding.
That's right. As we go to tape here on Thursday, that's what Arkansas Farm Bureau is saying. Also in the headlines, USDA increases its corn projection. The U.S. winter wheat crop gets smaller, and retail beef demand may have hit the wall. Wednesday's crop and supply demand reports from USDA contained a surprise for the corn market, a growing supply of the grain instead of a shrinking one. Using the internet, we made a video call to broker Nolan Cullen of Walsh Trading in Jackson Wednesday afternoon. We discussed the new numbers for soybeans as well, but began the discussion with the surprise in corn. Nolan, why were corn supplies increased in these new reports?
Well, today, Leighton, the USDA did have a surprise for the market, and we'd say those surprises were mostly to the bearish side. We've seen softening demand in corn despite bullish attitudes about weather, etc. The government did take into effect the later plantings by lowering yields. However, they still project that next year's corn carryout will be 900 million. That's an increase from the current 675. So that was considered bullish for new crop, and the fact that new crop supplies were raised, old crop supplies, were raised also, it was a bearish reaction in the market.
And what about soybeans? Any surprise there in the reports?
Soybeans also the same type of thing. We've seen Chinese demand softening, so therefore for old crop, the carryover supplies were lowered. However, for new crop, the carryover remains at 160 for new crop next year versus this year's current 170. These numbers are bearish for old crops. We saw that in spreading in the markets today. So I think we'll see continued pressure on prices on the short run, allowing that weather, planting conditions over the next several weeks will be the real determinant of what these new crop numbers begin to look like.
So it's difficult to say if livestock feeders and other end users of grain may see any change in the prices they have to pay.
I would say in a general statement, with the decline we've seen in livestock prices, that we'll see pressure remain on old crop corn with some support in new crop corn, for example. But overall, I would say we have seen the highs in commodities, and that's reflected on what some outside markets have done, such as crude oil, gold, silver, are suggesting that we may have seen major tops in the markets for the month of April for the next several months.
The nation's winter wheat crop is expected now to be the lowest since 2006. The Agriculture Department said Wednesday that dry conditions are to blame and that production is projected to be down 4% compared to 2010. Our trivia quiz this week is related to aquaculture. Let's take a look. How does farm-raised catfish rank in terms of U.S. fish and seafood consumption by Americans? Is it number 1, number 2, number 4, or number 6? Stay with us for that answer. A sell-off in old crop corn beginning at midweek is supporting higher feeder cattle futures. However, there are more indications now consumers are beginning to suffer sticker shock at the grocery meat counter.
It's not anyone else that are subjecting the cattle feeder to these drops in their cash flow. It is the demand on beef. And I guess we finally hit the wall in the retail level as far as the American consumer is concerned. She simply could not maintain the price raises that the retail was putting on the price of beef.
Our trivia answer for this week is the last stop of our segment. The correct choice is D. U.S. farm-raised catfish is number 6 on the top 10 list of fish and seafood consumed by Americans.